Did a whistleblower just reveal a second assassination attempt against Trump?
Thank you. What happened?
A U.S. counter sniper is blowing the whistle on the Secret Service. He says another assassination attempt is likely.
This agency needs to change. If not now, when? The counter-sniper wrote to the agency's uniformed division. The next assassination attempt in 30 days? Because we all should expect another attempt to happen before November.
In high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Too many see the protests as the problem. Please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Go to the Hill today. Get up in the face of some Congress people.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Running away from Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
When they go low, we can...
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump. And that's
an actor dressed to look just like President Donald Trump as he's assassinated on stage. Look as his character is stabbed to death. And there's no mistaking the Trump connection.
This is an email that Real Clear Politics obtained. It was dated Monday. The agency needs to change. If not now, when? The next assassination attempt in 30 days? Because we should all expect another attempt to happen before November. We've exposed our inability to protect our leaders due to our leadership. This whistleblower is saying you need to clean house there and start again.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's always easier to prevent something from happening than having to react to it. It's a lot safer in that regard. And I do think that you had a 20-year-old loner, untrained, with a week's notice, outsmarted and outmaneuvered the entire United States Secret Service. So there could be copycats that spring up because of this. And God forbid, John, if it had been a nefarious nation state with trained assassins, that could have been, led to a very different result. So these reforms need to be instituted immediately. And they do need to beef up security. They have 8,000 people that work in the Secret Service. They have over a $3 billion budget. They have to do an internal look right now, do a snapshot to mitigate some of this. But then Congress, you need that independent investigation because, as you know, agencies can kind of get in that cover your backside mentality. And we need to really examine, and we need to change the leadership because the people that got you in the hole ain't going to get you out of it.
I mean, though, if you look at the history of presidential assassinations and attempts going all the way back to Lincoln, it's always been a lone wolf who managed to get through the security perimeter. Members of Congress were told that crooks had 3 encrypted accounts on overseas platforms. I don't think the nature of the platforms was described. We don't know if they were financial accounts or if they were social media accounts or some other kind of account. But now there appears to be some sort of international component to all of this.
New this morning, members of a local SWAT team assigned to protect Donald Trump the day of the assassination attempt now say the Secret Service never met with them face-to-face. They spoke to ABC News about the lack of action after a local sniper texted about someone suspicious.
We had a text group between the local snipers that were on scene. I had sent those pictures out to that group and advised them of what I noticed and what I'd seen.
What do you think is transpiring once you send in what you've sent in?
I assumed that there would be somebody coming out to, speak with this individual or, find out what's going on.
Members of the SWAT team describing both a failure in planning and a failure in communication. And they told ABC News that it started with this briefing, that they were supposed to have a face-to-face briefing with U.S. Secret Service snipers before the rally took place. But that never happened. Take a listen to what they told ABC News this morning.
We were supposed to get a face-to-face briefing with the Secret Service snipers whenever they arrived, and that never happened. So I think that was probably a pivotal point where I started thinking things were wrong because that never happened, and we had no communication with the Secret Service.
So members of the SWAT team say they had no direct communication with the Secret Service at all on Saturday, which is amazing until after the shooting happened. That includes warnings that they picked up and they were talking about amongst themselves about this suspicious individual who would turn out to be the would-be assassin, that were raised hours in a group text with just the local snipers in it about 90 minutes before the rally took place.
No, I think we're clearly not getting the full picture here because, as you intimated, this is physical security 101, and the fact that that rooftop was not secured is a massive oversight. So in terms of theorizing on what happened, it is critical for a security plan to have your local law enforcement, to have your state officials, and to have your federal authorities all coordinating. It appears that there was some sort of lapse in coordination here. But what I think the bigger question is there are reports that he was surveilling President Trump's movements over the course of months. How do we not know how he was surveilling? What digital platforms was he using to do it? Every type of sensor that the world is saturated with right now emits what we call a digital exhaust. They should be able to track down his geolocation based off of the digital surveillance platforms he was supposedly using. They should have a pattern of life for this kid. They should have content emanating out of that to paint a more fulsome intelligence picture to get after this guy. The fact that that wasn't done beforehand, and it doesn't appear to be, they don't appear to be exploiting that data, at least accurately for the public to see now. This is a massive oversight as well.
I went to go see myself. I went to the grounds. I went to the site because, frankly, I don't trust the FBI and the Secret Service to give us the real story. I want to see it myself. And you are right. That roof, it's hardly pitched at all. It's at a slight slant. And I'll tell you this, Sean, I couldn't believe how close it is to where Trump was. I stood right where Trump stood, looked over at that building. I mean, it is 150 yards max. It is a clear line of sight from where President Trump was to that building. And the whistleblowers, Sean, what they have told me is unbelievable. It's that they were not patrolling the perimeter with canines as they were supposed to do. They were not patrolling the crowd. They weren't adequately keeping the area around the stage safe. And of course, we know that they didn't have eyes on that roof and that building. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think this is so interesting too, but as something I did for almost 10 years with the government and then with the big tech company, what you do is you can extract data from these platforms. You can figure out, who were these platforms that he was supposed to be using, even if they were encrypted. Who was he talking to? What are his IP addresses? Can you geolocate him to those physical locations? This is something tech companies can do. Was he using aliases? What are the connections to that network via those platforms? Like you said, we don't know the nature of those encrypted overseas accounts, but there are people who are in the government, even who are outside of the government, who can work to exploit that information that those accounts would convey. This does not pass the smell test. The fact that a 20-year-old would not have a heavy social media presence or minimal presence at all, and that in the face of that, he would have better operational security than the seasoned Al-Qaeda operatives that I tracked down over the course of years, doesn't pass the smell test. The American people deserve answers. Let's give it to them, Congress.
And if one 20-year-old kid can breach security as this one did, imagine if it was actually, we've heard that Iran wanted to take the president out. If they sent an actual trained team, God knows what would have happened that day.
Whistleblowers tell me that law enforcement were actually on different channels, different radio communication channels. There were multiple different channels, and they weren't coordinated. Sean, it's a total disaster. Somebody needs to resign for this. We can spend how many billions on Ukraine, but we can't protect an American president? I mean, what's going on around here? We've got to get the facts, Sean. And I tell you what, I won't rest until we get them.
That there are critical failures that need to be identified so the American people can understand the transparency of it, but also to raise the questions and awarenesses of why. That is the intent of this entire hearing, is to get to the why, get to those who are responsible, bearing in mind, responsibility and accountability are two very different things. This is not an I'm sorry, I'll resign, I'm finished. This is a get accountability to pursue either purposeful intent or criminal gross negligence.